Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Highly Inspired.
Hi, guys.
Hi. We are going to be talking about one of our favorite topics that we have talked about in the past, but we're kind of bringing a new light to it because I feel like all over the country, everyone's talking about this.
Yes.
And this is the movement, Make America Healthy Again.
Yes.
And what it means to us, what it means to the country, what it could look like moving forward if these policies get implemented, and just kind of like broadly where we're at, like health wise, chronic illness wise, etc.
There's a lot of angles to the conversation of health and healthcare in general. Politics is just one, and the MAHA movement, which is now the acronym,
MAHA.
we're still questioning how it's pronounced. I think MAHA sounds the best.
MAHA sounds better than MAGHA.
MAHA doesn't sound right. It's hard to say it that way, but
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that it sounds as weird as it does. But so that's just one aspect. And since we started this podcast, we've always weaved in topics on the state of affairs of people's health and things that we witness. And we've had our own personal health journeys in a lot of ways. As of recently, I think we're both in a good place.
Finally.
But we've learned a lot just through our own personal experiences. So I think we're going to get into that a little bit today and just give you guys some context. But yeah, I think that this will bring a lot that we've talked about a little bit more full circle. And we've actually been censored quite a bit in previous episodes. Our last one we did, which was in 2022, we got our video taken down off of YouTube because we talked about
The Rockefellers.
World Health Organization and John D. Rockefeller. So
And cancer treatments.
it's unfortunate
It was
that
a lot of the things that Tucker talked about in his episode with
Callie and Casey Means.
Casey Means. And we're actually going to a Casey Means and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. event next week, which is really exciting. We'll be doing hopefully like a live vlog sort of thing from it.
We've never vlogged anything before, but this is this feels like the right event and occasion to do our first one.
Yes. And I think for me, Jordan, you touched on it, but for me personally, I am the MAHA movement, joining the MAGA movement, to me has been very, very hopeful, very, very optimistic, breeding so much honestly patriotic, true authentic patriotism back into my heart that has been gone for literally almost
years.
6 years. That has left my soul a little bit because I've just been very demoralized in a lot of ways. And I think the reason why is because I never thought that a movement such as health would be front stage in a national election. People talk about healthcare or insurance, but health, it has never been on the forefront of an election.
Yeah.
In our lifetime, for sure.
Yep.
Maybe even decades. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was, I think for right now, I would say he's probably the most prominent of the Kennedys in terms of just the legacy.
You're most likely going to have 3 choices for president on your ballot in November. This guy, and this guy. I realize you probably heard a lot of bad stuff about him these last few years. But what if the bad stuff you've heard wasn't even true? And what if there's a whole lot more to him than you even knew?
This pipeline is not going to benefit the American people.
I would urge you not to accept the shackles of courtroom monopoly.
We're being given this land so that we can build cities on a hill. Our civilization will be judged by future generations.
Either way, let's start with some irrefutable facts. This is Bobby Kennedy. This is Bobby Kennedy in 1962. This is his dad. This is his uncle. And this is his other uncle. He was born in 1954. He grew up in Virginia and Cape Cod. He has 7 kids. This is his wife, Cheryl. Yes, she's that Cheryl. He's an attorney. He's won hundreds of cases against companies like Monsanto, Mobil, Massey Energy, Dow Chemical, and a bunch of other big polluters. He's a surfer. He's a falconer. He's a rock climber. He's a river rafter. He's a hunter. He's an outdoorsman. He was a heroin addict and an alcoholic. He's been sober for decades. His voice sounds weird. That's because he has spasmodic dysphonia. It's a neurological disorder that can affect the voice and speech. He can do 25 pull-ups in one go. I can do 3. He's 70 years old, and he's running for president as an independent.
He's put into the world with his environmental work and then his work with children's health, which I don't know how any sane person could be against either of those causes.
Yeah.
They seem like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
And
Never not important.
Never not important. And you and I really became followers of him during the COVID period when we were living through a tyrannical state such as California under the Newsom dictatorship. And he was a beacon of hope during that time because he was very much fighting a lot of the mandates, both on the national, state, and worldwide level.
And at that time, he was a really lone voice in that because there were very few people as on the front lines as he was that were speaking out against that. So his voice carried far, given that the mandates were abolished and we don't have to deal with that anymore.
It's a huge deal. It's a
but
big
it
one.
was quite a long stretch of time, though, that we had to deal with that. And I'm really glad that he didn't wait. It was pretty much right away. He saw that as a red flag and spoke out against it. He didn't wait to get confirmation or affirmation from anyone else in that world, which speaks to me that he's a true individual and independent thinker, is that he didn't have to wait around and, get that affirmation from anyone else.
No, and I think that he knew the beast of Fauci that he was dealing with. Because in his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, he goes after Anthony Fauci for the AIDS epidemic, where they were giving people, is it AZT? What's the drug that a lot of people died from? I think it's AZT.
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, anyway, I think it was AZT. There was basically the AIDS epidemic was very similar to COVID, where Fauci wanted everyone to use the treatment that he had, and it was killing everyone. Like the treatment was killing all these people, hundreds of thousands of people. Similar to when COVID happened, they would not let ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, all these things that we knew would help people. They wouldn't let those drugs happen. They wanted everyone to take, I forget the name of the drug. It was some drug that everyone was dying, and they were putting people on ventilators, whatever. Yeah. And then they wanted everyone to have the COVID vaccine. They didn't want the drugs that were cheap, that are widely available, that are safe, that are effective,
that work.
They don't want those drugs, and so I think it's a good.
Well, they're a threat to their business model, and I think a lot of why we're in the position that we're at across all aspects of healthcare, even just down to our food, is because we have prioritized monetary gain for big companies and big institutions versus just the overall health of our civilization. And this is a global issue too. It's not just America. Unfortunately, America right now is the most lenient with the chemicals, drugs, and ways that we're producing food and manufacturing drugs. But I know that a lot of other countries are dealing with things like that too, where they could easily remove a lot of the toxic chemicals in foods that are available for people to buy.
Why do you think the U.S. has some of the highest chronic illness, and we have the most lenient rules when it comes to like the FDA and what type of ingredients they allow in our food, and then just our larger like regulatory agencies with like what they allow in our water, like fluoride, for example. Like we're one of a lot of countries in Europe, they don't put fluoride in the water. Like, why do you think that is?
It seems like an easy question to answer, but I think it's complex. I think for whatever reason, we got off on this foot where we saw how much money could be brought in through choosing to manufacture food products and drugs with cheaper options that ultimately aren't good for our health. And so you can make more of them in a larger quantity without as much work or effort, and it doesn't require as much money. So I think that even probably starting back with Rockefeller, that became the norm, and then we just kind of stayed in it. And now we're almost so far past that that's all we know is just, let's say choosing seed oils, for example, to manufacture a food item versus grass-fed butter or a more healthier fat that might be more expensive, that's more from the ground, a whole food, that's going to be more expensive for these factories to get those goods to make the processed food product that they want to make. So it's easier and cheaper for them to choose the seed oils because they don't rot. They have so many preservatives that food will never rot. They can sell more units of it. So I think a lot of it just ties back to choosing the capitalistic reasons and routes for why they do it as opposed to prioritizing our health physically.
Do you feel like in a way it's a manufactured problem economically? Because if we truly eliminated these things that are hurting us or killing us, then it might actually be cheaper in the long run. Because, if the government's giving a subsidy to corn, which is what has corn syrup, that's going to feel cheaper because they're getting a huge subsidy versus like a small farmer is like the system's already rigged against him. So like how can he compete with these large companies that get subsidies for their chemical induced product? It's not even like a true capitalist system. And something that I saw this quote recently and it stuck with me. And it's like the reason why in Europe, and I don't think this is the only reason, but I think it is a reason, like the reason why in Europe they have healthier food and they regulate it more is because they already took away the guns and the free speech there. Whereas in the US, we still have like the best free speech and gun protection, although that especially free speech is
under
threat.
They're being threatened, but we still technically have them.
Yeah. So they have to do something to control us. And if you're sick all the time, it's very hard to be fully autonomous.
So the trifecta there is food, guns, speech.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which if you think
I think that's a great quote.
If you think about it, like COVID, when we were so fearful, people are willing to like give up their rights more. Like there's so many, and that was a health related issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Europe, like they can kind of concede maybe to let their people be a little bit more healthy. I think part of it's culture, part of it's walking, part of it's smaller countries. So you're going to have more local farmers, and their farmers are under attack too right now. Like in the Netherlands, the government is like seizing all this farmland and stuff like that. So it's under attack there. But I think because their systems already are, more natural based, that the attacks are feel even more prevalent there because they're not used to like the bad systems in place regards to food,
Yeah. No, I think they're definitely further ahead than we are with truly banning a majority of the chemicals that we have in most of the food products on shelves in grocery stores. I think where you buy your food means a lot. Some grocery chains say are buying organic food, but even the organic label is a little bit gray now.
Yeah.
Because there's layers to it.
Yeah.
I'd say probably shopping at a local farmer's market is the safest bet, because you actually can ask those producers or those farmers questions about what exactly they do, and they have to disclose it. So that's cool that that's an option that we have available. But unfortunately, I think we're in a situation where so many people are unhealthy and they don't want to be unhealthy, but it's because of this lack of knowledge on how to navigate all of this stuff, how to read labels, how to understand the types of toxic ingredients that are in foods. And we're not taught that in school. We're taught the dumb food pyramid, which is the most horrible thing, because it puts meat at the very smallest category of that group, and the biggest one is grain and complex carbohydrates. So,
and we're told red meat is bad for your cholesterol, like all this stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of it goes back to how are our medical individuals being trained? Like, how are they being trained in med school? And that was what I thought was really important on the Casey interview with Tucker, because they kind of like talk about that process. And I think it was at Stanford Medical School, right? And that was something that we talked about with Rockefeller. Like, so his product was petroleum. And during the turn of the century, we were starting to eliminate disease because of sanitation. A lot of people think drugs or vaccines were the reason why diseases got wiped out, but no, it was because of sanitation and plumbing. Like, that is the main
glamorous
reason. Very like, it's not glamour. It's very like basic stuff. But the problem with that is that during that time, health, using herbs, using nutrition, all these things that we've known about for so long, all of that knowledge got wiped out. And Rockefeller took advantage.
And so they pivoted us towards medication
drugs,
and drugs
because of the petroleum
versus food, which is the most widely available, accessible thing for everyone. It's just healthy food that isn't tampered with. Yeah. So where's the money in that? They had to pivot us toward drugs in order to have demand for making them.
Yeah, and I think that this comes back to like also what's your worldview. And I think if you're someone that believes in God or like a higher power, you're going to believe like Earth has everything that we need to sustain us. So when we try to be God and make our own version of the earthly version, the natural version, it's just not going to vote well. Like, it's kind of like Ozempic. Like, you can't cheat losing weight. Like, there's going to be some give. Like, anytime you try to cheat the system, it's going to result in some other problem.
I'm glad you just brought up Ozempic, because I have a segue, and I was going to save it till later in the episode, but we might as well just talk about it now. Everyone knows what Ozempic is. Yeah. It's actually, that's the brand for the drug. I'm not totally sure what the drug name is. It starts with an L, I believe, but there's a couple different other brands of it. And something else in this episode of the Means siblings and Tucker is they talked about how there's a bill being worked on, it hasn't been passed yet, that would allow us to say the U.S. is in an obesity crisis, so much so that we need to manufacture, I think they said $3 trillion worth of Ozempic, or of that drug. And then it would allow our government to distribute it to whoever is in the obesity or overweight category,
including children.
So we have such a loose definition on who that drug should be given to, that it would end up in a lot of people's bodies that it shouldn't be, even if you're just slightly maybe overweight, and you could fix that weight with just very simple diet changes. And that's so concerning to me, because as we know, with drugs like these, there are side effects, there are rebound effects, and our metabolism is you're not supposed to grow up as a child with taking a drug like that and be on it for the rest of your life. It's like your body can't even operate on its own unless it has this crutch on it. No. And right now, we're not over 30% obese or morbidly obese. We're almost to 50%. of the entire country. And it was interesting. I did a paper in college, which was not even 5 years ago, like 4 years ago. And I wrote about statistics on obesity, and I tried to link obesity to religion. It was something weird like that.
Tough.
I think I was given the topic.
Yeah.
I had to draw out of a hat or something like that. But at that time, it was 33%.
Okay.
So
Wow.
it is increasing at a rate that we have never
don't
even
understand.
seen it in a matter of months almost. So
I have a question about that obesity.
yes.
Sorry, were you about to finish?
No, I was done.
Okay. I've gone through a full libertarian period.
Okay.
Have you gone through a libertarian period?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I think I have days where,
Yeah.
I'm still in that camp
I
a bit.
consider myself a hodgepodge when it comes to like what I believe. Like there's things that I'm conservative, there's things I'm liberal, and there's things I'm
We like the gray
libertarian.
area.
We like the gray area. And it switches all the time because and now it's even more all up in the air. Okay, I was talking about libertarianism. I have a really good question.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, wait, let me, 1, 2.
okay, so we just set the stage of like where libertarianism has fit into our lives at different points and times.
Yes.
Okay, so as that ties into like the obesity and chronic illness and specifically like the processed food stuff, that it seems like the way that RFK is proposing that we address that on day one under the Trump administration is through regulatory and investigation purposes. That seems to be kind of like his method. That being said, how does that sit with you from a libertarian perspective, where someone might be like, well, I'm a libertarian. I believe that, people should have enough self-control, should have all the options in front of them and have enough self-control not to eat those foods. And they should just buy the healthier options. Like,
I totally understand that side.
Do you think that's accurate, or do you think it's not accurate because of other components?
I see that side of things for sure. I see that argument. However, I think we're at so much of a crisis of lack of knowledge and lack of access to healthier alternatives that we need some bigger players and bigger people, maybe even potentially the government, which is what RFK wants to work on, to become involved. Like I just pointed out that within 5 years, the obesity rate has almost doubled, and almost half of the entire country is not just obese, but morbidly obese. That to me seems like a crisis.
Yeah.
Maybe even more than, the fentanyl and illegal drug crisis that we are also dealing with.
A lot of fronts.
Yeah. So, but I think that with this plan of attack, we can involve a lot of strategies. And one of them can even be, how about we just give people the informational tools and then they don't
even have the right information.
Nothing's required. And perhaps we're not even banning the chemicals themselves, but we equip people with such robust knowledge. Going back to the quote of, you teach a man to fish, he eats for a day. You give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. If we all can know this, we'll be better off. It'll be easier to navigate, and we won't feel so convoluted with all of this information that's really confusing.
Yeah, that's a great point, because so many people will do the right thing or opt out if their doctor literally tells them the truth, or if they hear their public health officials tell them the truth, which is why so many people, even before a gun was to your head, took the COVID vaccine, were excited to take it because they were told that this was safe and effective, and it was going to help you.
There's something really safe and satisfying. You find solace in knowing, someone who's done more years of school and has some credential, a printed piece of paper. Someone told me to do this. I should trust them. That blind faith. Like, there's a lot of solace in that sort of thing. And I do respect that in some ways. But Unfortunately, I think people are a little too trigger happy with that.
Yeah, but what you're saying is that nothing, even before, let's talk about regulating like Europe does, where they're like, okay, this is a red dye is like it's poison, the same that you would view a poison like.
Let's teach everyone the why.
Yeah.
Why are these
Yeah.
chemicals bad?
Yeah.
Why is this way of making this type of food bad? Why are these drugs bad? Let's get to the root explanation of why we would come up with whatever strategy we end up coming up with, instead of just writing up a whole, plan and just saying this is banned, this is banned, this is like, no, that's going to leave a lot of people questioning, and that's not going to make the libertarians happy. It's going to feel forced. That's just a red flag. Can
I jump in about kind of just like largely why I drifted away from libertarianism more recently? I think in a perfect world, a libertarian country would be amazing. I think in a small country, that would be even more realistic. I think when you're talking about America, which is 350 million people?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
probably more.
I think it's unrealistic because there's so much bureaucracy already that is going to things that are bad.
Yeah.
So like, why not? Okay, let's just like, I'm all for balancing the budget even. I'm all for cutting programs. And it sounds like Elon actually is going to be on the team to do that because he has done that with X, with other companies. Like he knows how to cut the fat. So I think that's great. And the Ron Paul in me like loves that. However, I think that with so many issues, I see that our government gives subsidies to things that I think are the opposite of helping. So why not give that money that is already going to something bad to something positive? Like, for example, one of the things in RFK's campaign that I really liked was that instead of saying like he's pro-life or pro-choice, he said, I'm pro more options. Because right now the options, if you're like super, and I feel like I can speak to this from my own personal experience, but like if you have no family, no supportive partner, no money, no job, no education, and your government is offering you like a free abortion versus a very expensive, uncharted, emotionally scary path of raising your kid, even if you want to become a mother and continue your pregnancy, how is that a free choice?
That's a perfect example of where just more options, more access to resources would help so much and make that decision so much easier.
Yeah, and just like allow people to like really follow their heart as opposed to feeling like they were coerced into a decision. And I think that the food conversation is very similar because a lot of, like we were saying, a lot of the subsidies, not just in the government, but in the medical institutions, medical students they take one nutrition class their entire med school. Like that is insane. Insane. So then how can you trickle down? And
yet they're taught how to use 50 different types of scalpels to cut open someone's body.
Yeah. Which again, this is not a drag on like medical students or medical professionals or even like modern technology. I think that there's so much modern medicine. Like if I were to get in a car crash,
it's not as black and white as that.
I'm
yeah,
glad
we're not discounting
that.
those other classes that are vital, that are teaching skills to save humans' lives. It's just we can't dilute this nutritional and food is medicine aspect, because I think that should be the first line of defense. Go to that first, because most of the time, just slight tweaks with that sort of lifestyle in your diet can have a really good outcome.
Yeah.
And be cheaper and require less doctor's appointments and not be invasive. It eliminates the need for surgeries, oftentimes drugs. Yeah. So if we could do that for more people, I don't know, it makes your body stronger.
Can I tell you a really scary story?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a family friend. This is a medical loop situation. They were diagnosed with breast cancer early on, did the early treatment. I don't know if they did chemo, but they went through like the process. And again, it's like I don't know, was this like a vaccine injury? I have no idea, because it was like the timeline of it could be that too.
Yes.
Well, the medicine that they took, I guess that they prescribe you after you're done with cancer medicine. They prescribe you a preventative medication that you take for 2 years. So you're already in remission, you're already cleared for being cancer free, and then they give you I don't know if they give this to everyone, but they gave it to her, this like drug that you're
This
supposed
sounds
to take.
like a clockwork.
Yeah, so now that drug has caused her bone marrow in her hip to disintegrate.
Oh my gosh.
And she has to get a hip replacement, like way before,
And how old is she?
like early 50s.
Okay.
So this is just
Another surgery.
this is another example of, and then I'm hearing this story. You hear about now young people getting diagnosed with cancers that they were not diagnosed with before 2020, and it's so heartbreaking. and
Yeah.
and then I'm on X and I'm seeing these studies that are coming out about how ivermectin is coming out to cure cancer, stage 4 cancer. Ivermectin is curing cancer. There are studies being published right now, and people who are going through these hospitals are not getting that information.
I'll have to say that I was as astonished as anyone might be that ivermectin has potential as an anti-cancer agent. I'm a cancer surgeon. We don't do parasites, okay? We don't do ivermectin. And I was not really even familiar with those people who use ivermectin. And so when, in the early days of COVID, when it became clear that ivermectin was effective in preventing and treating patients with a SARS-CoV-2 infection, I began to be aware, having looked in the literature, that there was 20 years of research showing that ivermectin had great potential in the treatment of cancer. I was introduced to a patient with stage 4 prostate cancer. Had received 2 vaccines, perfectly healthy, marathoner, no history of cancer in the family. 2 months after his second Pfizer shot, he works for the government. He's going to lose his job and his pension if he wasn't vaccinated. He was diagnosed all at once with stage 4 prostate cancer. He tells a very compelling story, melodramatic story about that 24-hour period of time in his life. And he went through the traditional protocols: radiation, chemotherapy, pharmacologic castration, all of it, over a period of 9 months. And then his doctor said, you know, there's really nothing else we can do. And his name is Paul Mann, and he was like, can't you give me more radiation? No. Can't you give me more chemo? No. Aren't there any other drugs? No. Are there any clinical trials? There's nothing. Hospice. Send for the priest. So a friend of his knew me, and she said, would you give Paul a call? He just needs some moral support, something. So I said, sure. So I began calling him. We spoke about once a week for 3 weeks, and finally, the poor guy was suffering, had cancer in 11 bones in his body. His right leg was completely swollen, obstructed with tumor. He was miserable. And I said, Paul, I don't know if this is going to help you, but I know it's not going to hurt you. I just can't imagine, based on my judgment and understanding of the scientific literature and all of the work that Drs. Corey and Merrick had done, and others around the world, that ivermectin would hurt you. It might help. I can't say. So he said, you know, I'll give it a try. And he drove to Tennessee, where you could get it without a prescription. So he's getting better. About 9 months later, he's out dancing for 4 hours, 3 nights a week. He gets a head-to-toe rescanning, and 3 of the bone mets are gone. There's no growth of the mets that are there. No new lesions. There's only one hot spot, and that's where he received radiation therapy, and the radiation the radiologist really could not distinguish whether that was a tumor hotspot or radiation change. He is doing very well. The vaccine injury is a problem, but the cancer is no longer a problem, except for the fact that it's still there, and we want to get rid of it completely. And he said, he called me from a hockey game, and he said, if I didn't know I have cancer, I would not know I have cancer. That was patient number 1. I was like, that's interesting.
That information is getting censored.
It's only chemo.
Only chemo. And then you go back to Rockefeller and you see, he funded the cancer organization. He funded all these schools that switched how they did medicine.
You guys, it all ties back to this one human being. It's really remarkable. It's terrifying. Yeah.
And it's so sad and it's so depressing, and it doesn't even, like you said, it doesn't have anything about telling people what they can and can't do. It's about providing informed medical consent and providing all of the options. And if that ruins the plans of Big Pharma, if that ruins the plans of the insurance companies, so be it. They need to be the last priority right now.
Yeah, I agree. I have a lot of skepticism when it comes to chemotherapy and radiation because those are two really quick to be prescribed options when someone's diagnosed with any stage of cancer. And there's different formats of it, but I have personal experience. My dad had thyroid cancer, and he had his thyroid removed, so he doesn't have a thyroid gland anymore.
Which is important.
Very important. It's like crucial for your metabolism. And after he got the surgery, he went and did a round of radiation, which was an alternative he was offered that wasn't chemotherapy. So he never did chemo. But from what I saw firsthand from the radiation experiences, it is brutal. Like, you basically lock yourself.
How old were you when this happened?
I was about 10 or 11. Yeah. And I remember he had to lock himself in a room, and you just are basically dying because it's the radiation, it's this medication that is killing any lingering cancer. And it's a lot to put your body through. And while it can focus and fixate on that one specific area where the cancer is, it disrupts the overall immune system in your whole body. And so it's just a lot that the rest of the body goes through. All these other organs that didn't have the cancer are now, disrupted because that sort of treatment, including chemotherapy, has to target the whole body. There's no way that you can isolate it that specifically. So, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding just on what cancer is in general. People don't realize we have cancer in our body. Everyone does.
Good cancer.
We have cancer cells, and the reason why we have that is so that our immune system support cells are constantly having something to fight against. It's almost like if life were just easy for all of us, and we didn't have, day-to-day struggles to always be working toward, why would we be ever wanting to get better?
Yeah.
You kind of have to have that roller coaster. And so that's why we have that push and pull between those cells. It's only when the immune system is so down that the cancer cells end up multiplying at a faster rate that your immune system can't fight off. Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of ways, diet included, that you can support your immune system to fight against those without, requiring a drug as a crutch.
I think that if we can figure out how to make our immune system as optimal as possible, and then subtract all the things starting from birth that were given as preventative, especially let's just take out okay, I get it. Someone's on a drug. It's very hard to weed yourself off a drug if you're on drugs because even
they're
just
addictive.
An antidepressant, not just addictive, but your body is now used to the support of that drug.
It has adapted to it.
So there's some people that may not be able to wean themselves off certain drugs, or I don't know what that process looks like. Yeah, ivermectin is like a miracle drug. I take that a lot, actually.
Yeah, just for immune system support.
Yeah, anytime I'm remotely getting sick, this week I was starting to get just I started to feel a little congested. I take that 48 hours later, I'm
It's
feeling
probably
100%.
allergies, but even that can help allergies
Yeah.
because allergies are an immune system issue. And yeah, I should take it more. I don't have just like a storage at home that I can grab from, but I know that it can do a lot.
Yeah, and there's doctors too that you can get prescriptions of that along with just like other drugs that are important to have, like amoxicillin or like a Z-Pak, just like those life-saving drugs that if, God forbid, we were to go on like a lockdown situation, whether it was like a nuclear war, cyber attack, or outage, like you would have those like life-saving medications like in your home.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the idea.
Yeah.
But
At that point, you can't call the pharmacy and have them fill it for you. You are left to your own devices.
And can I tell you this crazy like pharmacy story that happened to me that I think fits into what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I love when you tell me stories because, like, obviously you tell me so many stories, but I love new ones that I haven't heard before.
okay, so
This has happened now multiple times in this episode.
a few months ago, my son was sick, or not sick, but he had an autoimmune rash,
Okay.
diaper rash.
Do you know the name of it?
It's like,
Or just diaper rash?
no, it has like a name. I forget. It's something long. Anyways, so they were like, okay, they gave me like a topical non-antibiotic cream because we have a really good holistic urgent care here in Scottsdale that I go to sometimes. So they gave me this topical cream, and then they also were like, okay, well, if that doesn't work, we'll prescribe you an antibiotic, but you have to pick it up at the compound pharmacy because most likely the other pharmacies like won't have it, like a CVS or a Walgreens. So there's all these like independent pharmacies in different cities or towns, and there's less of them, and they're all independent, but they make a lot of the drugs like in-house
Okay.
too, and they have
like
a lot
that.
more stuff than a conventional pharmacy would. Well, I got there to pick it up, and they're like, hey, we're not going to be able to have it in time. We have to pick it up Monday, but like, why don't you try to call like CVS or Walgreens, whatever.
Okay.
So I call around because they're like, this is a very common cream, like topical antibiotic cream. Like you should be able to get it. All of the major pharmacies at multiple locations, they didn't even have this drug in their system. The pharmacist didn't know what I was
Wow.
talking about. They thought I was like making up a drug. Like I felt so stupid. And I was like, but the doctor literally prescribed this. Like I have a written prescription. And they were like, I'm so sorry. Like we don't have this. And it made me realize like how many drugs out there that are older drugs, that have been around that probably they don't make
either
money.
discontinued or in such a lower amount globally, hard to access, that aren't in these trainings for pharmacists at a Walgreens.
Well, think about this. Every drug, the pharmaceutical industry is dictated by patents.
Okay.
So if ivermectin, the reason why it was so cheap and they didn't want to use that versus like a brand new fancy vaccine that can make a lot of money is because it's been around forever. So the patent has expired.
Okay.
So now they can't charge a premium because it's like the generic version of the drug. So anytime
it.
like a drug, the patent expires, and everyone can see what those ingredients are, and there's no competition anymore.
Okay.
Or there is
That makes sense.
competition. There is competition. So basically the patent protects the capitalism to happen, because basically like imagine if you spent all this money in R&D for a drug and then now everyone gets to copy your recipe.
Yeah, it's not fair.
It's not fair. So that's why I think a lot of these older drugs, the doctors, the mainstream medical doctors, they aren't aware of these drugs because they aren't being taught about these drugs, and therefore the main pharmacies don't hold them. They only hold the new stuff
Okay.
that's under patent that can make money.
Okay.
And I think that that's a lot of that system applies to so many things if you think about it. Because like the new stuff's always going to make more money than the old stuff,
Yeah. Well, I kind of see it as you can have a lot of different versions of a very similar type of food even.
Yeah.
It's a different recipe. Doesn't mean that the other ones are bad, it's different preferences for different people. So being able to have access to some of that, if it's effective, would be good.
Yeah, and a lot of these drugs are like the earlier versions of them are less like less intense too. Like, okay, thinking about birth control. Like the people that have had the least amount of side effects from birth control from just what I've taken is people who have taken a generic cheap form of birth control that has been around for at least like 40 years. Like a pill older versus like trying the newest IUD or the newest implant or even like the newest drug. Like there was this drug called Raz or Zaz or something. I don't know. It had a funky name in like the 90s.
I really dislike both of those names.
Early 2000s. And in the movie Business of Birth Control, these women die from it. They have like these like seizures from it.
Hi guys.
Hey.
We are
some technical difficulty.
We're on our third recording because our phones keep giving us iCloud photo storage alerts.
What was that one when we did the Tim Dillon episode?
And it had an issue?
It kept having all those issues, but it ended up being our most popular episode.
Maybe it's a sign.
We like spilled wine and then we weren't recording. Like, the audio wasn't recording.
We had to whip out the towels and put them on the table because wine got all over the table.
Yeah, that was fun.
Anyway, I don't even know where we were.
I just
we were at?
Put a pin in something?
Yes.
Can we talk about? Can we talk about why it's been so exciting, especially being here in Arizona where a lot of this health stuff nationally is happening? Because the RFK announcement, it happened here in Arizona.
Yeah,
like
it
very
was
close
almost
to us.
2 weeks ago now.
Yeah,
it was on a Friday. We did not go, but I watched the live stream of it, and it was really cool. I felt that for most of this year that Arizona is now getting a lot of really special moments and events and just more people here, more recognition.
Yeah.
And it feels cool because I'm living back home now, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I don't know why that is. I think
it's because we're a swing state.
We're such a swing state that they know.
Turning Point is based here.
Yeah.
And they put on a lot of events. Like they're going to put on the RFK and Casey like health town hall that we're going to next week. Yeah. They put on this rally. And then I just went to the Tucker and Russell Brand event. So Tucker Carlson, he's on tour right now.
Yeah.
And he's doing
a month-long tour,
which is like the perfect timing to do it.
I think so too. And it makes it special enough that's why everyone's coming out for it.
And everyone's coming together to not just for that, but for the Unity Party, which it's kind of health adjacent because I think that the reason why MAHA is joining MAGA and why health all of a sudden is now becoming the forefront of Trump's campaign, which to me is so special because when I was kind of the most upset with Trump was during COVID and how he handled it and how he just
made many questionable decisions and a lot that I think he would regrets and would take back and not do in the way that he did in 2020.
Yeah, so for me, seeing him bring RFK on stage was a final admission of like we're moving forward from that and we're rectifying
I've been thinking about that a lot ever since the announcement because RFK is very outspoken that this healthcare crisis is his most pressing issue, the one that he's most passionate about, the one that he has the most information on. And I don't think that Trump is as knowledgeable as he is. I mean, Trump still eats McDonald's and he's definitely not the healthiest lad. But
I mean, he looks great for 80.
He does. And he's sharp. He's very mentally
very
sharp. I don't know what he's on.
I don't know.
I'm sure he's on a cocktail of something.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because he is speaking, he is in support of this movement and knows that we need to take action like fast. So, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna be skeptical of Trump. Like he doesn't need to be the healthiest person in the world to speak on it or to care about it.
But I think you're right, and you brought this up before we started recording. There's a lot of issues, not just health, that RFK has covered that relate to our generation.
Yes,
more so than maybe some of the stuff Trump is talking about, and I think RFK and his VP running mate Nicole, both in their own ways, along with the other people that are joining this uniparty, Tulsi Gabbard,
Unity Party,
or Unity Party.
Yes,
Unity.
We're trying to create a distinction between the Uniparty that we think is,
the oligarchy.
It's just a regime. I don't even know.
Should we name the characters of this
yes.
regime? Okay.
Yeah. Maybe one day we'll actually put some nicknames to these characters. But right now we're just gonna name their names.
We have the Clintons. So we have Bill and
Hillary Clinton. The Obamas.
We have the Bushes. Multiple generations of Bushes and Deborah Bush.
The Bidens.
Harris.
Tim Walz.
Tim Walz is now joining.
Elizabeth Warren.
And then
now Putin.
Putin's on board.
Putin's all aboard the Uniparty train.
He just endorsed Kamala Harris, and so did Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney.
Beautiful.
So lots of warmongering, lots of neocons.
America's in a great place right now when Putin is siding with, It's hard.
To me, I don't know how this is happening, but somehow my X algorithm is getting messed up. And Trump brought this up actually today. But he's like, why all of a sudden do I have all these like Democrat influencers on my feed? And I'm like, I've had the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And all these like Democrat reporters or whatever, I don't even know if they're Democrat. I would just say corporate media at this point. I wouldn't even say
Cogs.
Cogs. Or it's like these TikTok influencers that are paid and they're like, they're on one. But they're
on many.
They're like, isn't it so great? Like John McCain's son is endorsing Harris. Isn't it so great? Like that Liz Cheney's endorsing Harris, that Dick Cheney. I'm like, thank you for making it so clear about my decisions to support Trump and Team Unity, because it's making it so much easier than it was in 2020 because it's so clear.
Well, it's already been confirmed for us, or it's felt that way. But day by day, with every announcement that gets added to the Uniparty, it's more and more solidified.
Yeah, like everyone that I don't like.
So for that, I'm grateful in a way. It leaves less questioning and flip-flopping for me. Although I really still do try to stay in the gray area and, be neutral and perceive everything from that place. But yeah, it's pretty easy to see it once I get those announcements.
I think for us, we've been in the gray area for so long, and that's why we've kind of developed a liking to people that have been on opposite sides of the political spectrum.
Yeah.
Like loving Tulsi Gabbard, loving RFK, loving, Brett Weinstein, Elon Musk, although we're skeptical of all these people, but like Tucker Carlson, Russell Brand, like I would say over the last few years, we have developed a different spot in our heart for all these people. And so for all of them individually who disagree widely on a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And up until recently, I would say Trump was not really backing down on his handling of the pandemic, which was a huge issue for Nicole and RFK. And so to have this all come together right now has been really beautiful, I think.
I think so too. I agree. It's felt like a different lead up to the election and more of that optimistic side than we had in 2020. Yeah. It almost just got drastically more and more negative as the days went on. Now it feels like it's
getting more positive.
Raising to a climax, and I don't know what that is going to look like when we get to November, but it's a totally different trajectory in these, intro weeks before then than we had in 2020, which was just dark.
What are your thoughts on
I want to get back
Nicole
to
and her like videos that she's been putting out about health and just kind of her background?
Yeah, I had heard her in a couple podcasts, like clips. I hadn't ever watched a full length podcast of her in it until just a couple weeks ago. And I am a really big fan of her now, not just as a political figure in this, landscape right now, but as a person and just her temperament, her vibe, her well-roundedness. I get a lot of, she just seems like a really intuitive, chill person who's smart and educated and intentional with how she speaks. So yeah, I've been trying to follow her a little bit more and get a better understanding of what she actually is in support of right now. But yeah, I listened to her speech along with RFK's announcement and his big speech from that week.
Okay.
And
which speech did you listen to?
It was a talk that she kind of gave.
Like
I think it was to her. No, I think it was something that her team put out, but it was her speaking. It wasn't an interview. But yeah, she's cool.
Yeah, she's really cool.
Nicole Shanahan, if you guys didn't know.
Yeah, look
her
her up, because I feel like a lot of people, if I were to just bring her up in passing in conversation, I don't think people know who she is, and I think that she's a really cool person, and I my money's on that she will run to be governor of California.
That'd be cool.
Be really amazing.
Yeah, she lives in California, right?
Yeah, I think
the Bay.
She lives in the Bay Area, or at least that's where she's lived a majority of her life if she doesn't live there now. Her background's in AI and in tech. Yeah. And she got brought into the health world and introduced to Bobby when her daughter was diagnosed with autism, which is really which is obviously very unfortunate, and that affects you. And I think that when your child gets diagnosed with something and then you as a parent are trying to get to the bottom of it, and then you feel like you're being gaslit in different ways, that is the most frustrating thing ever.
The autism category of health is another thing that the Means siblings are really outspoken on right now too, because apparently now 1 in 33 kids is diagnosed with autism. And in California, it's 1 in 22. Yeah. Or less. It's far less than 1 in 30. So.
And 1 in 30 is too many.
Yeah. And back in the early 1900s and before then, I think it was 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 1,500 is what they said. So that's a big difference. Yeah. And hopefully that's another thing that can be addressed if we just kind of, tackle this whole food issue and get everyone a little bit more metabolically healthy. I would highly recommend, and we're just giving spark notes of what that other podcast is.
Yeah, you need to
You guys have to listen to the podcast of Casey and Callie Means on Tucker Carlson. Probably one of the best podcasts I've ever listened to.
It's really
and
good.
The most concise, how they consolidated this really high level health related information and this science into something that we can understand. Yeah. It was really refreshing. It made me feel like good that I understood it and that we got the main plot points without having to, know numbers that aren't relevant. They only stated the relevant numbers, the stuff that
I thought that they covered a lot too for that short amount of time. They talked about everything from pharma to like the medical schools to food to water,
school lunches.
Yeah, school lunches are huge. Like that's a big thing that overnight we could
easily fix
easy peasy. And like, I'm sorry, the school lunches should not look worse than prison food.
They do,
and that is.
I have nightmares of the school lunches that I had 15 years ago.
Yeah,
I can't imagine what they look like now.
Have you been on the TikTok? Have you ever been caught up in the TikTok algorithm where it's like,
is it the nostalgia algorithm?
School lunches before Michelle Obama and after Michelle Obama?
Yes. I mean, both are gross photos, but now they're very disgusting looking.
Yeah, and that was something. So Michelle Obama actually wanted to address children's health originally. Like that was because the first lady always has like a thing that they focus on.
That was her thing.
It's her thing, and it was about kind of restoring the food pyramid to what the food pyramid should be, which is like healthy food, And then someone must have sat her down and been like, "Hey, this is something you can't touch." So then her whole campaign became about let's move, let's exercise,
let's get active.
But
that's so true.
But to the point of the podcast that you're just mentioning, what they're talking about is mainly food. You can do all the working out.
Exercise is only like 20% of losing weight too.
Yeah.
It's 80%, 75, 80% diet in what you're putting in your body.
And it's so frustrating if you go to the doctor and they're telling you to eat, even if they're like, yeah, you should be eating vegetables. Well, RFK's talked about this, like, there's so many vegetables that are not worth eating unless you're getting it from a local farmer because it has so many pesticides on it.
It's worse.
It's worse than eating, I don't know, like something else.
Yeah.
No,
that's true. I think a non-organic GMO-filled type of vegetable, you're not only losing the nutritional benefit, but you're now ingesting more poison
into you.
So you might as well just have candy.
Yeah, no.
It's basically turning vegetables into candy, and now we have fake meat that's even worse. It's some concoction I don't even know how to explain, and that is not a replacement for real grass-fed beef or meat from an animal that doesn't have GMOs, is eating the right things, is taken care of, is loved by whatever farmer is raising it. And yeah, it's just, like, food is it's medicine.
Yeah.
It's the most food that we eat becomes us.
Yeah.
Like every cell in our bodies will absorb what we ingest. And so if you're like, you are what you eat is not
you are what you put in your
fake
body.
Phrase. Like, that is a literal, there's truth to it.
You are what products you put on your body, like what medicine you take, what
consume.
You inject, like all of it becomes you. And I think a lot of people say too, they can feel like the trauma of the animals that they eat that are like raised inhumanely or aren't fed like grass or stuff like that. And I do think that that's true because I've had like really high quality eggs versus like not high quality eggs, same food, and I can feel the difference. And I don't know if it's like the trauma per se, but it's definitely like something with my brain is more alert. My body feels better.
So it's not a price tag thing. It's a feeling when you eat the food.
Like, I feel better versus
wow.
like, with certain eggs.
Okay, I haven't really paid attention to that, but
like,
now I'm kind of curious.
I will not. Now that and sorry, I don't want this to sound like
pretentious
or pretentious, because honestly, the way I justify it is if you were buying, which eggs should not even be this expensive, but that's an inflation. That's another conversation.
Yeah.
But let's say
prices of everything will go down if we handle things correctly.
Yeah. Let's say if we buy eggs, I mean, as long as we start drilling here again, that'll solve most of inflation. So that's the biggest problem is that we stop drilling.
Yeah.
But that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, we don't want to open that can of worms right now.
But with the eggs, yeah, like I
want to try the blue eggs that you were telling me about.
Okay, guys. Okay, if
the chickens aren't blue, the eggs are blue.
The eggs are blue. Again, this is going to sound so bougie, but the way that I justify it is that, okay, if I'm paying, let's say I'm paying, I don't know, $8 for a dozen eggs. Okay, that is a lot compared to like $1 or $2 or $3.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, the price of that meal is actually very low compared to even if you were buying meat or like a frozen pizza. Like a frozen pizza is probably the same price, but for 3 eggs, that can be a whole meal. So I'm getting like 3 or 4 meals out of a carton of eggs versus like a frozen pizza for the same price, which would just be that one meal.
And the difference in nutritional value between those two options is they're in different leagues.
Yeah. So that's how I justify.
Eggs are the most nutritionally dense food available. And yeah, the fact that you can eat that, it's light, it's not too filling. You can pair it with so
Yeah.
many things, have it at any time of the day, and it doesn't raise your glucose levels like eating a bunch of carbs from a pizza would be.
No, it doesn't. And yeah, so these blue eggs, you can buy them at like Whole Foods. I think you can buy them at Sprouts. I don't know if they have them at Safeway, but they're this brand that they have a lot of different pasture raised types, but this particular hen, the blue eggs make a very yellow or orange egg yolk, and that's how you tell the health of the chicken and the health of the egg is like the more orange the yolk, the healthier it is.
Yes.
And so like you can literally look at a plate of eggs, and if it looks pale and white, like that egg is probably not very good for you versus like an egg that is
It's a GMO.
orange.
I think
You know?
at some point in the process of GMOing eggs,
And
we decided
hens.
that the orangeness was gross looking or something. And so to incentivize people to eat more eggs and actually eat the yolk, we genetically modified them so that the yolk
Isn't as right.
would be less saturated and therefore look more appetizing or be more
Do you remember
appetizing
like in
to us.
college when we thought egg yolks were bad for us?
Yeah, I was told that it would raise my cholesterol or something like that.
Yeah, 'cause
which
you-
it actually does the opposite.
You used to like not put. You would take the egg yolks out.
Yeah, yeah.
Like to make eggs and only use egg whites. And I remember
I don't do that anymore. I haven't done that for years, but I did do that in college, and I'm so mad at myself. I wasted the best part of the egg. That's where all the vitamins are. That
I
is
know.
the chick.
and then
It's the embryo
we had a roommate
or
that
the egg.
it's the nutrients.
It's the nucleus.
I don't know.
The nucleus of the egg, whatever.
But we had a roommate that would buy like the carton egg white, and I was like, should I be buying just like the carton egg white because like the egg white is supposed to be healthier for you? But my intuition said no because I was like, why would I buy like a box of liquid eggs when you should be using like the actual one that you crack?
I love how in depth that we're getting on just this egg topic.
But do you know what I'm
My
saying?
gosh.
Like,
Yes.
that's how crazy they were selling in a carton, like a milk carton, just white egg yolk that's probably processed it. I don't know how they even did that.
Or like egg beaters. Have you ever heard of egg beaters?
No.
It's like the whipped egg together, but it's the most GMO'd egg, and it's in a carton too.
Yeah.
I think the egg white only. Yeah, that's
Or-
just. We need to ban that.
or what was
Can we
that?
ban
What
that?
was that thing that was called everything but egg? And it was like an egg substitute, and it had really cool branding.
How do you make an egg
I
substitute?
almost started buying that at one point. Like I really, I think,
Someone please tell me how you make an egg substitute.
I don't know.
What does that taste like?
I have no idea.
Maybe we should do a taste test live show of fake foods.
We should just like bring all the different eggs that you could possibly and like bring
Egg
someone
test.
in, bring someone in who has like no idea what we're about
Taste
to
the
do.
difference between these eggs.
Yeah. So
There's
but-
an obvious difference. I had, when I was in Prescott over the 4th of July, one of my friends who just bought a house there, they have a chicken coop, and we had eggs from their chickens, and they were blue eggs. They were little, though. They weren't like big ones in a carton, probably the ones that you had. But they were the best eggs I've ever had.
Blue eggs.
Which is why I now need to try the Vital Farms ones.
Yeah, Vital Farms blue eggs.
Yeah.
Pop 'em. That or like go to a farmer's market, but
I wanted to tell you guys a term I'm coining, and it's something that correlates to both the like self-diagnosis of things, the investigation when it comes to health and food, and it's sort of this like self-taught med school. Like I think that all of us to some level are having to do self-taught med school because we're just not getting the right amount of correct information from schools, from online, from doctors, traditional medicine doctors, unless people are blessed to find someone who's a little bit more holistic in their approach, or I just don't think that the average American has enough information to know how to decode like a lot of what we're saying right now. So I think everyone has to do some level of self-taught med school. And that's a lot to ask every American to do.
It's a lot.
We need someone else to come in and help us with this, because I feel like I've put in so many hours, and it could be just with small symptoms that I notice in myself here and there, but every time it's like I'm deep diving and I'm trying to like learn, and I'm not taking the first article that pops up on Google because I know that that's not a trustworthy source. But most people would do that, right? Like you start with, okay, maybe you have a symptom and you don't want to go to the doctor yet. You don't know if you have to go to the doctor yet. So you go to Google and you take the first result and you click on that article, and then it has some advice, but most of the time it's WebMD or Healthline. And unfortunately, these are companies that are owned by such massive media organizations, and not your, custom approach, personalized, tailored approach doctor who's going to know your whole body and what to do. So it's a very generalized amount of advice. And yeah, that's not always great. So then you get sent into this next layer of reading other articles or going to TikTok or going to Twitter. And a quote that I also read in a tweet that I really like is, someone said, "I'd rather trust an anonymous person on Twitter with my health today than a doctor." And I think that's completely true. Yeah. I resonate with it. Yeah. I would hope or think that a lot of you guys listening would resonate with that too. It's just a weird time.
It's a really weird time. And I think it's because there's a collapse of our institutions, and there's a collapse in trust in our institutions. So when that happens, then formalized data becomes irrelevant, and
yes,
and what becomes relevant is talking to people about like kind of anomalies and things that are just like primary source information, as opposed to looking at a study. You're gonna get more information from like you and I talking and being like, "Hey Jordan," like we exchange information. "Hey, do you know there's a holistic urgent care?" And I'll tell you where it is, and then because otherwise you might not be able to get these drugs.
It's a decentralized. Yeah. It's like an under the table.
It's under the
format.
Table, and the people that have not worked hard, but have organically built this decentralized network, whether it's online, whether it's in person, whether it's through their own interest, whether it's through their own skepticism, they're the ones that are going to be the healthiest in this system as long as censorship stays in place, and as long as these large institutions continue their monopoly over our healthcare system. Because if you don't, you and I are not even, we have not even invested as much time as some people have, but
there are full-blown YouTube channels where actual doctors, go through as many tiny pieces of detail with every small condition. It's a minefield. Yeah. Every aspect of the body and health, it can always be looked at closer, but
and the problem with things being so decentralized, which is good, but if you haven't been slowly inching your way into the decentralized world and slowly building a repertoire and a network and a level of being able to decode and dismiss things,
and a set of alternative resources,
you're kind of screwed. Like if you get that cancer diagnosis, or you get this, like, you need to get this surgery right away, and there's a ticking time, like where the hell do you go to look when you haven't built that up because you haven't had to yet, you know?
Yeah.
And I think both of us have gone through collectively so many different health things, like all different parts of the body.
Yeah.
And so
most people have.
But we also, that happened at a time where we were in college and kind of had that free time. And I would say there's a natural interest there too.
Yes.
And there were so many other things that we were skeptical on, that it made it easier to be like, okay, this institution also can't be trusted, along with other ones that we don't trust.
Yeah.
All
it takes is someone that you meet, or someone to kind of inch you in. And I don't know if that's going to be us from this episode right now or someone else. But like for me, I'll just give you guys a quick overview. I talked about this in a previous episode, but I had some sinus problems, and I had like really bad sinus allergies, and I was going to an allergist and an ear, nose, and throat doctor for a couple years that they just were giving me allergy shots.
And you had to do surgery too,
I ended
right?
up getting my deviated septum fixed, and I had no surgery, and none of it really worked. And it was because none of it attacked and addressed the immune system problems that I was having. It all tied back to this underlying immune system deficiency that I had. And so I found a more functional medicine doctor in Arizona, and in the first session with him, he sat me down and was like, this isn't going to be an overnight fix. This is going to be several weeks and several months of routine, consistent commitment and diligence. And it's going to take longer, but the results are going to be better. And so I'm glad that he prefaced that to me, because for most people that are used to just getting prescribed something and you can see quick results right away, and feel better in a shorter amount of time, while that might make you think that you're healed because the symptoms are suppressed, you're not actually healed. Because the second that drug is removed from your equation, your body's going to go right back to where it was before. It's a Band-Aid.
And maybe not even when the drugs are removed, but maybe when your body is
or you might have a worse issue.
Or you might stay on that drug, but you've built a tolerance to that drug. So now that drug is no longer efficient.
You need to have more.
Yeah.
You need to increase the dosage.
Which when we interviewed that girl who had eczema, that's what she said was the eczema medication just stopped working because she kept building an immunity to it.
Yeah, because it wasn't actually hitting at the root of her issue. Yeah. So this guy introduced me to this world, and then I worked with him for a couple months, and it changed my life. And then ever since, I just, have learned more and more. And I don't want anyone to have to go through that road in order to figure this out. But I think you had a similar journey.
I've had a few different things, and every time I've always this is part of the problem too, is that I think if you want the best if you want the best fix long term, you have to get comfortable with knowing that your insurance isn't going to cover it.
That's a whole other thing we need to talk about too.
I'm dead serious though, but like the best medical care I've ever had is
they're not going to take your insurance.
When they don't take your insurance, and I've just been very comfortable trying to like fit that into my budget, and also just not, being like, okay, like whatever, I'll put it on a credit card, like, because it's so important.
We'll deal with it later.
We'll deal with it later because like this is so critical. And same with it comes to my son's health. Like I found, in my opinion, one of the best pediatricians in the state, and they don't take insurance, but they don't take insurance, and that's because it's for a reason. That's because you're getting a way better quality of care. You don't have to deal with the admin. There's no nurses there. It's all doctors. It's all MD. It's all you have an hour-long appointment with the doctor, and it's not just like, okay, we're gonna shoot your kid up with these 10 vaccines today and off you go. And we're not going to gaslight you if you have a question about something, because like I went to a few other pediatricians before this one because it took a while to get into this one because they had a long waiting list.
Okay.
And like Lito, he had like constipation issues, and that's common. And a lot of these other doctors were just like, oh, that's normal. There's nothing you can do. I'm like, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do to like help him. I don't believe you. I do not believe you. And
oh, that's normal. I hate that quote.
Yeah, or bad luck. It's just bad luck.
Yeah. This is just really bad luck. If you were ever told that by a doctor, just never see them again.
Or it's just genetics.
Yeah. Or I've had a doctor tell me before, do you think you could live with this for the rest of your life? Yeah, red flag. Big red flag.
And don't be afraid to fire your doctor. Leave. Don't
you
come
want
back.
a doctor that's going to be like, I will do whatever it takes. We're going to figure this out. Someone that can be innovative and give you that real custom approach. Take the time, not just, have you, like some of these appointments I've been in when I was younger and in the more traditional healthcare system. I don't know if it was my pediatrician or what, but like you're literally rushed in. The nurse is literally typing the fastest. It's like
so
every
stressful.
note. And is the doctor even looking at all those notes? Probably not. And then they come in, they put some hand sanitizer on their hands.
Oh, the hand
they
sanitizer.
They run through the motions, and then they say, yep, you'll get scheduled on your way out for your next appointment. And it's just this hamster wheel of the same cycle over and over and over again. And I don't understand how so many doctors haven't woken up to this.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to be automated like that. Like they get in the habit and it's just comfortable.
It's like any
We need more
industry.
doctors that are willing, like this Casey Means, who left her specialty and it was the top of her class, an amazing surgeon, because she was like, I can't cut into a single more person until I figure out why so many people are coming in with these same issues. And so she just totally pivoted and is now focusing on metabolic health, which I think what did we say earlier? That's the main strategy that the most trickle down effect can come out of.
Yes.
Like if we approach this one primary thing, the healthcare crisis was specifically metabolic health, so many other branches that are correlated to that will get healed as a byproduct. And so from an economic standpoint, and say the Trump RFK administration, put the money there.
Yeah.
We can do that. Mental health will then get better.
Yeah.
People's work-life balance will get better. The list goes on.
Your financial standing's going to get better. Yeah.
Your contribution to your community as a healthier individual, more capable, sharper, mentally individual,
You're going to be a better parent.
will be improved solely because your physical health is better.
Yeah. And
It seems so, it's so simple.
It's very simple, and it's really the large corporations at top that are preventing that from happening, because they know that the solutions are simple. And okay, yes, there are people that are forever going to be lazy or want to stay on eating these foods, whatever.
Yeah.
Like there is always going to be that portion of the population.
Addiction is a disease.
Addiction is a disease, and that needs to get dealt with, however that gets dealt with. And I don't know what the answer fully is there. But what I'm saying, I think what we're both saying is that to sum it up, first is less is more. So like, let's eliminate the things that we know
I love that.
are not adding, there's no positive benefit to our health. It's only negative. Perfect example, HPV vaccine for a day-old child. I am sorry, if the mother tests negative for that STD, then that baby does not have that STD.
Statistically proven that child already now born does not have HPV.
That child does not need to take a vaccine that their immune system is not ready to handle when there is no benefit. There is zero benefit for them taking a vaccine that is for an STD. I'm saying that child is not having sex anytime
they are
soon.
30 minutes out of the womb.
Like they're
Just
gonna
stop.
be okay. Like,
yes.
Okay, great. That is one, and there's a million other things that they administer at birth, which you can listen to my episode on my pregnancy that I will, and during pregnancy.
Yeah,
Oh my
you
gosh.
got into that a lot.
The first thing I literally find out I'm pregnant. I find out I'm pregnant. Okay, I'm having.
You're at your first appointment.
You're
You're like, what is this?
I have to call my boyfriend to break him the news. Like, this is very stressful. This is not where I need some like
I'm not in my right mind.
I'm not in my right mind right now. And you're trying to sign me up for a multi-$1,000 program with you all. You're trying to get me to take 2 vaccines. You're trying to get me to commit to blood work.
Like, I don't even know what prenatal vitamin I should be taking.
And they tell me all prenatal vitamins are the same.
No.
And I'm like, what the heck? I was like, again, that was kind of like that egg carton moment where I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. And I was like, we're going to pause. I was like, thank you for my ultrasound. I'm going to take this and we're going to skedaddle.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to think on it.
And I never have gone back. I never went
That's
back
good.
there. I went to a different place that was way better.
No, but a lot of people,
And I paid
a lot of
cash,
people in that
so-
circumstance, just being tired, emotionally drained, don't have the energy to look into that you did or sit on it for a little bit and revisit later. They would just be like, you know what, I'm exhausted, just sure.
Also the pressure.
Because that's the easier option. Then they pressure you.
They pressure you. And I just heard this, which was crazy, that okay, so there's 72 vaccines that are on the schedule right now.
Okay.
We only had like 20. I guess a lot of insurance companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield is one, will pull their support from pediatricians' office that don't maintain an 85% or higher full vaccination patient status. So like that's why they get kind of like golem on you when you start to like push back, and whatever the decision is, whether it's a medication or your birth plan or whatever, they start to go like they start to like get on you, and you're like, gosh, I'm paying
Is this
you.
are they trained to do that?
I don't know, but like I do think because they know that it's that they have to meet these certain metrics in these different areas.
Well, a lot of doctors
metrics.
in clinics and practices like that are paid based on quantity of patients that they bring in per year, not quality of results or how well they heal from an issue. It's just the quantity of how many visits they see.
Which maybe that needs to get restructured.
Yeah, we need to restructure that. The payout needs to be dictated based off of something else. I would rather it be more results oriented. Like if you successfully bring in a new patient and you not only treat them in one session, but in a multitude of sessions, and they ultimately heal their problem or put it in remission, that it should be based off of that. I feel like that's the best incentive. It shouldn't be just like quantity of how many visits you're bringing in from that patient.
No, exactly. And I think that the pros and cons of everything has to be looked at, because, for example, like your immune system is it's stronger when it fights off diseases on its own, and you avoid the intervention as much as possible. So something that, again, RFK was bringing up was that the reason why before a lot of the like even think about the COVID shot, like people who had natural immunity were better off than people that had immunity from the vaccine. And not just for COVID, but for all diseases. Like your immune system, that metabolic health is going to allow you to fight off cancer better, allow you to be less likely to have heart disease.
Yes.
And so if you're as an infant,
it also is highly correlated to your mental health too.
Yes. And so if you're
your brain
as an
function,
infant, not like if you haven't, had the measles and recovered, which most people, if you are healthy, you will recover from these diseases that really aren't life-threatening. A lot of them aren't. The reason why they were life-threatening was because, there were other comorbidities that people had, like maybe starvation or bad water, whatever. But if you eliminate all those things, a lot of these diseases that people are so freaked out about you recover, just like COVID. Like you will recover, and you will be stronger because of you recovered.
Isn't that how the human race actually evolves?
Yes.
Is when our DNA builds organic, raw resilience to these things in our environment, so we evolve past it.
Yeah.
Then we don't need anything because our body can do it all.
Yeah.
That's how we actually evolve.
Yeah.
But clearly we want to evolve with all these drugs in our systems, but it's fake. It's fake evolution.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to like even like a brain chip or something like that. Like we're just trying to like put things in us.
Just always integrated with something synthetic.
Yeah.
Whether it's a synthetic substance or a synthetic, structure apparatus that's like inside of us. Like the amount of people that have metal in their bodies from surgeries, like fake joints, and now we're gonna have the Neuralink installed in people. Yeah. Like we really are. We're crossing into that transhuman territory if we're not already there.
Which I think, bringing it back to the metabolic health, that's the opposite of that. Like we said, if you believe in God, you believe that everything on this earth has the ability to sustain you and to heal you, plus that spiritual connection to God. And you do not need this other crap.
No.
You don't need it.
It's like, less is more. I really like that quote for this episode.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you guys something I had in my notes, but it just hit my mind. So earlier this past week, I did a full blood panel, and I hadn't had like just my regular primary levels of things tested in over 4 years. And I did a full panel, full hormone panel, metabolic panel, immune system panel, autoimmune disease panel, thyroid. Like I did everything. Yeah. I even retested some food sensitivities because a couple years ago I was sensitive to a couple things, not allergic, just sensitive. And I ended up going to like a chain lab. It wasn't a private practice lab or, more boutique phlebotomist sort of thing. And the reason why I chose that was because, one, my insurance did cover it, and labs like that are very expensive out of pocket. And two, was I really wanted to get the results back as soon as possible. So I went to LabCorp in Tempe, and they ended up drawing 15 extra large vials in one session, which is that's not something I would recommend.
Why did they do that many?
My primary doctor now thinks that the phlebotomist that I had that day was either in training or...
So they just experimented
while
on
I was mid blood draw, she was like, "Wait, I need a couple more," and she had already had this whole tray of at least 12, and then went and grabbed more vials and brought them over. I'm like, "No, you're taking so much out of me." My gosh. So I was not prepared for that. If I would have known, I would have divided that panel up into a couple different sessions. But regardless, I was fine. It's actually a testament to how strong the body is that you can get that much taken. And I was fine. I drove myself home. Yeah. I went and I worked the rest of the day. I felt a little bit tired that night and the next day, but it was fine. So anyway, I got my results back, and something I found really interesting is so with cholesterol, it's divided into HDL and LDL cholesterol. And HDL is the good one. LDL is the quote unquote bad one. So you want to be high with the good one, low with the bad one. And that's what I am. Mm-hmm. I'm on the high end for my HDL ratio. And so on lab result sheets at big labs like that, it groups both of those ratios together. And so then it's labeled high cholesterol, if that makes sense. Which everyone has probably heard.
They freak out.
Hearing high cholesterol sounds scary and that something's wrong and that that's not healthy. And so a lot of doctors will falsely prescribe people with medication to lower their cholesterol and keep them on that for the rest of their lives to lessen the chances of heart disease. And it's just adding another crutch to like the whole whole lifestyle that you don't have.
I'm sorry, let's wait till we see the heart disease.
So if I didn't have a doctor that was able to explain the reality of that ratio to me and be like, "No, Jordan, you're totally fine. If anything, your cholesterol is better
this way."
I'd be given a drug right now.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So
we have to fix that.
We need to fix that. There's all these little things, these little holes, and we have to identify them. I don't know how we do that housekeeping on such a macro level because there's all these different specialties. That's what's going to be hard is there's all these specialties doing the housekeeping in each one of them. I don't know how we do that.
That was what the podcast brought up, which we've talked about this in our Medical Loops episode. We've talked about the fact that health has become so specialized. Like doctors are so specialized, they're looking at one part of your body and they know nothing about the other parts or how that could affect, what's going on. And they don't have that interconnective, holistic looking at it. So it's really hard when like you're going to 15 different specialists and they're all contradicting each other and no one's talking to each other. And you're just kind of like, I don't know. Like it's very confusing, and you have one medication that's counterbalancing the other one. And something too that I think is structurally needs to change, which ties into economic policy, is that student loans are such a problem because it just is forcing college and post-grad to increase in how expensive it is. By the government giving out so many student loans, like the colleges just have no incentive to keep their prices down because it's basically like, well, if the government is always going to subsidize the cost of college, like why wouldn't we just keep raising? So the colleges need to cut the fat. The government needs to stop issuing these crazy loans.
Yes.
Because part of the reason why these doctors get trapped by almost no fault of their own is like, oh my gosh, imagine you become a doctor because you love to help people and stuff like that, but then also because, you know, you're guaranteed a certain salary, right?
Yeah.
And you might be, this might be your way up. You might be smart. You might be coming from a poor family. You might be the only educated person in your family, and you spent all this time and money. You took all the student debt to become a doctor, a very specialized doctor. What the hell do you do once you get there and you realize, oh, maybe I'm in a corrupt system? Where do you go? Where can you cross train?
A lot of people stay because they have committed, they've
have
put
family.
so much time toward it. That's why I think doctors like Casey Means, who said, screw it, I don't care that I did 9 years of school for this. I have to throw this away because it's it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
There's systemic corruption inside of this industry. So yeah, the more doctors that I see do that, I'm just gonna have more and more respect for them.
But yeah,
because I've never
be really hard to be in that position.
I haven't even been in the work world for 9 years. I haven't put 9 years of my life into any one thing. I can't imagine how hard that would be to let that go.
To let that go, and you have no other training. You can't just become a tech person. You can't just become in the business world. Like, if you're training to be a hand surgeon or whatever, like that's very specialized. Like, it's not a very transferable skill.
No.
And let's say your parents didn't cover your medical school, because a lot of times they don't. Even if you come from a wealthy family, you know, a lot of parents, they're like, if you want to be post grad, you have to pay for that yourself. So now you have hundreds of thousands of debt. And maybe now you're trying to start a family, and you need to make money to like pay off that debt and pay for your life.
It's trapped.
It's really,
they're trapped.
They're trapped, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to give anyone an out, and I'm not saying that's everyone, but that is part of the systemic issue, which ties back to like our fiscal policy, which I hope that will get addressed too, because that's a big problem.
Yeah.
And same with like cost of housing. All these things are very intertwined, and I think that these last 4 years, because things have felt so, even foreign policy, I don't think it has to be as complicated as they make it seem, because we had 4 years where we did not get into any new wars.
Yeah.
And
It's
we were
possible.
actually getting
We
out
can
of
go back
wars.
to that.
And we can go back to that, and we can go back to like a 2.0 better version of that with all these new alliances that are forming, because I think that my issues with Trump during his administration were that he was not as tough on the bureaucracy that he promised, and I think that he was able to figure out who are the good actors and who are the bad actors, and he's now building this coalition of amazing people, from independents to Democrats to libertarians to Republic, like everyone who's awesome.
It's
like,
a hodgepodge.
It's a hodgepodge of awesome people, and I'm very hopeful that we can slowly try to chip away at the bureaucracy that's specifically in health, you know?
Yeah. It's cool to see that hodgepodge in the Unity Party, because it's just a bunch of really independent people too that are very distinct from one another.
Yes.
And I like that. I feel like that's what the goal for America was, that we were all really individualistic, unique, distinct people with different skills, and not all trying to be the same thing, yet we have some moral code that we all agree on.
Yeah.
So
Iron sharpens
any
iron.
pattern that I think emulates that initial vision, I see as a green flag. And that's what I see with this group.
Yeah.
This group of people.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing to your example of just specialists colliding in healthcare, just to give people an example if they are having a hard time visualizing that. Take like a dentist, for example, that wants to use fluoride, because fluoride has been proven to help teeth, where fluoride is not good ingested in any other way in the body. It actually really messes up your immune system and your gut lining. So that's like just a small example that we all can relate to, because most people go to the dentist and get fluoride because that's just what you do. But yeah, that's two areas of the body that react differently to something like that or to a treatment. And so that's just another, let's say, line item in the housekeeping that we need to do.
Yeah,
I might even just like write out a list.
There's a
I'm gonna send it to RFK.
There's a separation. We should actually. I feel like you'd actually read it.
I think you would too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a separation too between specifically like dentists and doctors, and there's so much intertwined. Like even removing a certain tooth can have such an impact as on your health.
Yes.
And like for example, like I have a permanent metal retainer, and I've actually been thinking about removing it because I've heard that causes like brain fog and like toxins issues because
all for what? Straight teeth?
Yeah, like you have metal. I'm gonna have metal in my mouth for the rest of my life. Like it is kind of a weird thing to think about.
Yeah.
And the whole reason why
that's really interesting. I haven't heard of that.
Braces to begin with is because of the soft food epidemic, where we're given such soft food as babies, and we're not breastfeeding as long that our
that's why our wisdom teeth don't come through anymore.
Yeah,
that's
our
why
jaws aren't developing as much.
Yes, that's a massive medical loop. We'll get into it another time.
But I'm saying that's why I had to get braces, and now I have a metal retainer, is because my mouth didn't form properly, because I probably should have had extended breastfeeding and not have been given soft baby
so
food.
the jaw can develop.
Yeah,
and your teeth can come in.
A bone or something.
The one thing that I'm so grateful to my parents is I never got braces, and I never had a retainer. And I think that we had an orthodontist that told
you have good teeth.
Well, but they weren't like. There was a time when I was a kid that like maybe they didn't look that straight, but as I got older, they found their way.
Really?
Yeah. And it wasn't through the help of braces. And my brother was the same. He never had them either. And he has really straight teeth. And I know that's not the case for everyone that doesn't get braces, but I'm so grateful to my parents that they did.
Did you like chew on a bone when you were little? Like
no, because my wisdom teeth didn't come in.
Okay.
Like my jaw didn't develop in that way, but I guess I had enough room for them to like be straight.
Yeah, because when you look at old skulls,
I had a binky for like several years, which wasn't great.
That's not good.
I know.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the binky.
I don't know.
But that's all I can think of.
Interesting.
I interrupted you. Sorry.
I had nothing important to say.
Yeah, the list goes on, you guys. There's a lot.
I didn't even get to bring up my joke about.
Bring it up.
No,
it's not too late. What was the tweet?
No, this isn't really. I don't know how I pulled this up. That's relevant.
Okay, I'm gonna check the notes.
It's basically just
everything too.
Calling Liz Cheney Miss Piggy.
Are people calling her that?
Doesn't she kind of look like Miss Piggy?
She does. Sesame Street
character vibes. No. I'll save the drone joke for another time when we talk about that.
I wrote out something we've been starting to do, and we actually made our first like graphic version. We posted it on Instagram and Twitter of some ins and outs for 2024, or just ins and outs permanently. Doesn't have to be just for this year.
Okay.
But I wrote down some of the health related ones because I think, just even knowing these small bits of info can go a long way. In sunlight, out blue light. Okay. In grass-fed butter, out processed seed oils. In grass-fed beef, or preferably grass-fed, grass-finished beef, out Beyond Meat, anything of the sort.
What's grass-finished?
So grass-finished is they live their whole lives eating grass. So grass-fed is actually a really elusive term because it just means that at some point in that cow's life it ate grass-fed,
so they had it
which
for
could
one
be a
meal.
week.
They had it for a meal.
They ate it once, which qualifies as grass-fed.
They had a single blade of grass.
They had a blade of grass, therefore it's a grass-fed fillet.
Oh, it's damn.
No, but these are all the little things that we have to define.
It's so tough.
Better.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want grass-fed, grass-finished, no Impossible burgers and shit like that. in raw milk, out nut milk or processed nut milk. I mean, maybe homemade nut milk's fine. In functional med, out Big Pharma.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's
I think if you can
home birth in, hospital birth out, unless you absolutely need it.
Especially during a COVID lockdown where they don't even let your family be in there with you.
Yeah, smiling in, masks out. Dude, the masks are crazy that we were wearing that and ingesting all that microplastic.
I know. You're literally breathing it in. Yeah, I don't know how surgeons wear those all day long.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a different version that they get. But we're going to continue coming up with ins and outs because it's a way to simplify.
Blue eggs are in.
In blue eggs, out white GMO eggs.
Carton egg white.
Egg beaters. My mom used to buy those. It was horrible. Yeah.
Because it was already... Have you ever seen, like, at grocery stores, sometimes they sell hard-boiled eggs? And I'm like, how lazy do you have to be?
Yeah, and they're, like,
You
green.
can't
The yolk is, like, green inside.
Like, you boil your own egg.
I know. It takes, like, 2 seconds. Like, you can boil a bunch, and they last for multiple days.
They also sell them without the shell on them either. And I'm like, who took the shell off? Like, I just have so many questions.
Someone's just in the kitchen, like, de-shelling eggs all day.
In the factory.
It's like at Whole Foods.
It's probably like some sort of machine. I don't know.
People are going to be like, these girls need to do that job because they like to talk about eggs so much. I think a good, like, 2% of this episode has been talking about eggs. No, but they're great.
It's a cheap, healthy food.
Maybe one day, if any of us has land and a home with a backyard and a chicken coop, we can have some chickens.
I mean, you could get a chicken on your balcony. Like a
Should
little
I
chicken
do that?
Joe. Chicken
Guys, comment down below if you want me to get a chicken coop for my apartment. I'm on the 3rd floor. I don't know if that's not healthy for them, but I'm open to it. They're cute.
I mean, the little chicks are really cute.
I know, chicks are so cute.
They're really cute.
I haven't seen chicks in a while. You've taken Lido to see.
Yeah, my friend Tatum had some chicks, and unfortunately, she had to get rid of them because they kept, like you get a batch of them, and they don't all make it, and it's too traumatic. It was too traumatic for her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How many on average don't make it? Like most of them?
No, I think it's like 1 or 2 in like a batch of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, poor things. I see them at Easter, or at random petting zoos, but yeah, they're not out on the street. Except in Orange, there was that lady who walked the duck around the circle. I think it was a duck.
It was.
There was this woman where we went to
duck
college.
eggs.
It was this like Circle Street area downtown,
cute.
and she had a leash and a collar for it.
Yeah.
Imagine like a big dog collar on like a really skinny duck neck.
Is that even legal? I don't know.
I feel like the amount that she was out there and the amount of people saw her.
Yeah.
There's no way police didn't see her and
They have bigger
call her out on
fish
it.
to fry. All right. Well, thank
Yeah.
you guys. Thank you for listening to our shenanigans.
Thank you for listening.
And
again, highly recommend watching that Tucker Carlson episode that we recommended.
Yes. Listen to RFK's speech that he did from 2 weeks ago. Listen to some of the podcasts Nicole has been on recently. Listen to the one with the agriculture. Mm-hmm. Is it a senator or Congress guy that's like really interested in agriculture? He breaks down like why just healing the soil is like so important.
Yes. Because that's from the soil is being put into the food that's growing out of it.
Exactly. Which this will also help with climate change. If we can get our agriculture under control, it will help with the environment and our health. So.
I got this the other day. If you want to look at it, you can. But I got my first official Farmer's Almanac.
Oh, I love that.
And it has a lot of really good info in it. I don't want to get into it right now because there's a lot. But this is also a good resource just for like really boots to the ground, farmer's perspective. What's in season, farming techniques, some like cool stats that I found in here.
I love that. Do you think you're going to grow anything? Like on your...
No, I mostly wanted it for the weather. And then they have a lot of like cool like astronomy related stuff in it too. But wait, I want to tell you guys this quote because I really like this quote. I highlighted it. Time is what keeps everything from happening at once.
Oh, I love that.
So not everything's supposed to happen at once. It's like it's a spread out process. And time correlated to health, most good improvements in your health it's gonna take time.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to have that consensus because if we understand that a little bit better, I think we can move away from the short-term fixes.
Yeah. Well, what's the difference between a tragedy and comedy?
I don't know.
Timing.
It's all time.
It's all time. Like, you can go from the most depressed, sad state, and then, like, the timing or the circumstances change, and it can be complete opposite. So,
yeah. It's like that whole trajectory now changed.
Yeah.
And then all of those other outcomes, like, go off into the multiverse, and you never know
it's exciting
what that reality would have been like.
I know. I'm excited. I'm positive. I'm energized. So we'll see. And let's make America healthy again.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Maha.
Maha.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Maha.
That actually does mean goodbye. So thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you.
See ya.